All right, let's talk about something big that's happening in the UAE's corporate world. A brand new mandate is totally changing the rules of the game. And you know what it all boils down to? One thing, financial trust. So let's get into it. What's really going on and why should you care? I mean, think about it. How can you really trust the numbers you see in a financial report? Whether you're an investor, a business partner, or even a leader inside the company, when you're looking to those statements, how do you know for sure they're accurate, that they're reliable, that nobody's been, cooking the books? Well, the answer to all of that, it lies in how strong their internal controls are. And we've seen what happens when that trust just evaporates. Corporate history is littered with these cautionary tales. I mean, just think back to the Enron scandal in the early 2000s. That wasn't just a couple of bad calls. Oh no, it was a complete catastrophic failure of internal controls that basically opened the door for massive fraud. The whole thing collapsing led to the Sarbanes-Oxley Act in the US, and honestly, it's that exact same core principle that's pushing the big changes we're seeing in the UAE right now. So to stop those kinds of disasters from happening again, regulators are laser-focused on this one concept. You're going to hear this acronym a lot, ICOFR. I know, it sounds super technical, right? But trust me, the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. The easiest way to think about ICOFR is like a company's health and safety policy, but for its finances. Yeah, it's the whole system, everything from who has the authority to approve a payment to the nitty-gritty of how inventory gets counted. All these little pieces have to work together to make sure that the final numbers the public sees are actually trustworthy. We're not talking about catching a typo here and there. This is about stopping the big stuff, the material misstatements that could seriously mislead investors. But here's the thing, ICOFR isn't just about playing defense. Sure, it's great for preventing fraud and keeping you compliant, but having really strong controls actually makes the whole business run better. Seriously, it gives you more reliable data to make smart decisions, it helps streamline your processes, and maybe most importantly, it builds that rock-solid confidence that brings investors to the table. Okay. And this is where we get to the heart of it. This is why we're talking about it today. ICOFR is no longer just a nice-to-have or a best practice in the UAE. Nope. For a whole lot of companies, it is now a mandatory requirement. And that, my friends, is a massive shift in corporate governance. And this push is definitely coming from the top. You've got two main players driving this whole thing. First, there's the Securities and Commodities Authority, or SCA. They're the ones watching over all the publicly listed companies on the UAE's markets. Then you have the Abu Dhabi Accountability Authority, the ADAI, and their job is to make sure there's integrity in any company where the Abu Dhabi government has a big stake. And you know what? They're both singing from the same hymn sheet, sending a super clear message. Strong internal controls are simply not optional anymore. So, you might be wondering, are their rules exactly the same? Not quite. Let's break it down. The SCCA is all about public companies, and their main goal is to pump up investor confidence in the markets. The ADOA, on the other hand, is focused on those government-related entities, making sure public funds are protected. But here's the part that's an absolute game changer for both of them. They now require an external auditor to come in and formally issue an opinion on how effective these internal controls actually are. That is a huge deal. Now, the SCA is being smart about this. They're rolling it out in phases. But don't let that timeline trick you into thinking you have loads of time. The work has to start, right now. For 2024, companies have to get a comprehensive self-assessment done. By 2026, they have to get that formal opinion from their auditor. And come 2027, that opinion goes public for everyone to see. See, an auditor can't just show up on the last day and sign off on your controls. They need to see them working, and working effectively over a period of time. So the real deadline to get your house in order, it's way, way sooner than 2027. Okay, so if you're sitting in one of these companies thinking, oh wow, where do we even start with all this? Take a deep breath, because thankfully, you don't have to figure this out from scratch. There's a globally recognized playbook for exactly this situation. Yeah, nobody's asking companies to reinvent the wheel here. The SCA itself points everyone towards something called the COSO framework. This is the global gold standard. It's the same framework that thousands of companies all over the world use to comply with big regulations like Sarbanes-Oxley. It just gives you a really structured, logical way to build a solid control system. So what is this framework? Well, it's basically built on 5 key parts that are all connected. It all starts with the control environment, which is just a fancy way of saying the tone at the top. What kind of culture is leadership creating? Then you've got risk assessment. basically figuring out what could possibly go wrong. Next step, control activities. These are the actual things you do to manage those risks. Information and communication is all about making sure everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing. And finally, monitoring, which is just checking to make sure the whole system is still working like it should. The key thing is, all 5 have to work together. You can't just pick and choose. So what does this journey actually look like in the real world? Well, first you do your scoping and planning. You figure out which parts of your business are the most critical. Then comes the documentation phase, where you map out all your processes and controls, find any weak spots or gaps, and then you fix them. And this next part is so important. You have to test everything. Test it again and again to make sure it's working consistently. For a finance team, this is way more than just a box-ticking exercise. It's about building a solid, evidence-based system that's ready for that final, crucial step, getting that official thumbs up from your external auditor. All right, let's just zoom out for a second here. Why is all this happening right now? And why is the UAE making this such a huge priority? Believe me, this is about way more than just some new rules on a piece of paper. This whole initiative is actually an essential piece of the UAE's long-term economic vision. Think about it. If you want to be a top-tier global financial hub, what do you need? You need markets that are built on a foundation of transparency, accountability, and, well, trust. Forcing companies to adopt world-class internal controls, that's like laying the bedrock for that entire foundation. And this quote really says it all, doesn't it? The whole point is to lay the groundwork for long-term resilience and trust. This isn't about scrambling to meet a deadline for this year's report. The real goal here is to build stronger, more robust companies that can earn and keep the trust of everyone they deal with for years and years to come. Look, when companies in the UAE start playing by the same high-level rules of financial integrity as companies in, say, New York or London or Singapore, it completely levels the playing field. It's like putting up a giant neon sign for global investors that says, hey, the UAE is a safe, transparent, and super reliable place to put your money. And that, at the end of the day, is a win for everybody. So that leads us with one last big question to think about. Is this just a new rule to follow, or is it something bigger? This mandate feels like more than just an item on a compliance checklist. It feels like a signal of a much deeper commitment to raising the bar for corporate governance across the whole country. So the real question is, how will this shift reshape the very culture of business and accountability in the UAE for years to come? Definitely something to think about.